I'm Orrin Babcock, and I am currently the UAV intern for Town & Country. And UAV is Unmanned Aerial Vehicle, and we also refer to it as a UAS, which is Unmanned Aerial System. And our UAV we are currently using for scanning crop fields for plant health, and from the images that we get, we're able to judge plant health, use those maps that we create as a scouting tool, as well as VRT prescription maps. And in the future, we're hoping to be able to do a lot more as the technology catches up to what we're doing. So this is the trailer that we have set up with Town & Country for hauling our drone and everything in. I'm able to bring in my catapult fully assembled instead of taking it apart and putting it in a truck. I'm able to have the UAV actually hanging on the wall, pretty much ready to go, and that's safe for it. It's not able to bounce around. It sits in there very securely. We have a tool bench in here that's organized with labels on all the drawers. I have my tools, my spare parts, my manuals. I have my discharge battery separate from my charged batteries and my camera supplies. And then also we have a charging station in here for the UAV batteries, and we have that hooked up to a car battery, and I also have a power inverter so that I'm able to charge my laptop or hotspot card if need be, if I'm out doing a lot of flights during the day.
Yeah.
Alright, this is our launcher. It's a catapult for the drone. We have to load it up with bungees to get the tension to be able to launch our drone off the end so it's able to take off into the air. Safety pin on it so that you don't bump your trigger back here and get your fingers run over, because it's got some force behind it when it launches.
I'll bet.
So we've got several components to being able to get the plane up in the air that we have to add to the plane to get everything working properly. I have my antenna that I put up on top of my trailer so that I have signal to the plane. And the plane runs on a pair of lithium polymer batteries that we put in, and it goes into a pair of compartments that are built into the body of the plane. And then also there's a compartment up front for our infrared camera that looks straight down and is able to take pictures as the plane is doing its scan pattern across the field. And then I removed the soft nose cone on my plane so I can mount a small video camera on the front and take live video while we're flying. So whenever we're getting ready to set up for a flight, we need to know wind direction, so we just got some simple smoke that hunters will use to judge wind direction, and we're able to judge our wind direction easily. Even if there's hardly any wind, you can see it. And we need that for takeoff and landing into the wind, as well as when we fly, we want to fly crosswind so that we're able to maintain an even speed as we're going. And we're able to land and take off crosswind, but ideally you want to go into the wind just like a normal plane, where if you have a tailwind, it's not going to take off, it will go down to the ground. So our planes have several safety features in them, and they all kind of rely on setting your home. Once you set your home, after you've launched the plane, it'll come and circle over home until you tell it to start doing its scan pattern. When it's finished with its scan pattern, it will return to home and circle overhead until you tell it to land. And when it lands, it swoops out and comes back into the direction that you've faced it, and so that you're able to land into the wind. And if you're good enough, you can get it to drop about exactly where it's sitting right now. So I'm going to tell it to set home here, and all I do is give it a few flicks of my controller and it'll send a signal. Now it's acknowledging that the signal was sent, and when the flaps wave in unison, that means yes, home was set. If they wave opposite, that means no. Then I have to wait a few seconds and try again. Alright, so we're going to get the computer set up here. We use a program called Ground Control, and I'm able to come in and connect to my plane after I have it turned on. And through my antenna, I'm able to pick up its GPS signal and pick up a Google Earth image, and it shows my plane on the actual screen. Well, it shows a triangle of it, and it shows it in the field that I'm in, so that I'm able to create my scan pattern. And so you can see where I set my home earlier, and you can see where my plane is, and you can see which direction my plane is pointing. And so I'm able to add a scan pattern. And I just drag my edges of the polygon out to get the field. And I'm making this one rather large because the field isn't exactly big. And then this purple arrow in here is for wind direction, so that I'm able to fly crosswind. So I'm going to adjust that into the direction that my plane is facing. And so that throws off the way my scan pattern goes. And you can see it runs an interweaving pattern, and so it'll come all the way across, make its circle, and come back through to cover the entire area. And I'm going to adjust how wide my swaths are. I'm going to take it from 220 down to about 190. And so 190 will be the end swaths, and each path it takes normally when it's flying will be double that. We should be ready to go, I believe. I just got to ask my plane if it's ready to go, and we'll be able to launch. So we're just about ready to launch here. One of the final steps I do is to do a safety check on it to make sure that the plane, if it loses contact with my controller, I need to make sure that it'll fly level. So I take my joystick, put it down to the bottom left to get my ailerons to move, and then I switch the controller off, and you'll see the ailerons go back to level as soon as you can. And then also I can pick up the plane and tilt it, and the ailerons will move, trying to adjust it even without contact to the controller. And so the final thing I'm going to do is ask if it's ready to fly or not. So once again, I'm going to send it a signal. It'll acknowledge the signal, and then if the ailerons flap in unison, it means it's ready to go. And if they go opposite, then I don't have something set up proper and I need to check what I've done. So here we go. The signal was sent. And it says it's ready to go. Okay. So I'm going to pull my safety pin. I'm going to step back, give it some throttle, and let it go. So once I launch it, I need to flip one of my switches up and tell it to go into its manual circling pattern where it'll circle home, and then I have to go into the computer and tell the laptop to take over and allow it to start in on its scan pattern. So here I tell the laptop to take over, and then I tell it to fly to its first waypoint.
1 minute.
And my controller will read out how long it's been up in the air so that I don't lose track of it. And even if I were to lose track of time, the plane knows that if it gets low on battery that it needs to return home and try to land on its own. And you can watch now as it's going through its scan pattern on the computer there. So now it's just starting in. It had to come over and start in on its first pass. So our plane has finished its scan pattern, and now it's circling over its home, waiting for me to instruct it to land. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell it to land, and it's gonna swoop way out, make its turn, and losing altitude the whole time, and come in for its landing. And when it comes into land, I just reduce throttle and maybe pick up on the nose a little bit if I get a little nervous with it. So that's the plan, and here it comes in now. Yeah. And it just makes a soft belly landing like that. It's nice and tall wheat or hay, and it makes a pretty smooth landing and doesn't do hardly any damage to crops. So my plane here has an SOS beacon on it, and so if I end up having to land it in tall corn where it's very hard to be able to find it, I'm able to listen for my SOS beacon and try and track it down that way. And also, if I have issues, I can go to my computer and find the GPS coordinates, enter them in on a device, and track it down that way. So as the plane is flying, our infrared camera is taking an image about once every second, and when it's all done, we have to take all those images into a computer program and stitch them together, and that takes a decent amount of time due to our interweaving pattern. It's not able to just throw everything together. It has to look for common points and stitch all those photos together so we can get our image of the field. And so we end up with 300 to 400 images depending on the size of the field. Upwards of 700 if we're doing 200 plus acres in a flight. And we're able to get close to 30 minutes of life on our batteries. And the largest field that I've done so far is 240 acres, and that was on a relatively windy day, but I was able to get all the acres in on one set of batteries. And currently, as far as weather conditions go, bright sunny days are clearly the best because we do not produce our own light source. We depend upon the sun and to get that reflectance back into our camera. If we have large puffy clouds casting shadows across the field, that throws off what our actual readings are. And on windy days, it'll tilt the plane. The plane knows to right itself, but a gust of wind will tilt it, and that'll throw the image off so it's not able to stitch in properly. And so those are our limiting factors right now as far as weather is.